Okay, today I'm in London with Simon Cawkwell, well known in city circles and also probably lesser known, but to bookmakers he's known as a formidable punter. Simon, I'm told that you're known as Britain's most feared bear raider. Is that a justified title?
I've had my moments, but that was quite a few years ago. I wouldn't pay any attention to that. I don't believe my own publicity, if that's any help to you.
Now, on the train up, I was reading your book, Evil's Good, and it says that you have a wife, 37 bookmakers, and 12 vintners to support. Now, do you still have those bookmakers?
No, because they've all run away, with the exception of Star Racing.
Okay, Simon, where did your interest in betting, apart from the stock market, sort of germinate?
I'm not sure, but across the corridor from my study at Rugby, there was the son of a trainer. The trainer was Ken Cundall, and his son Peter was, as I say, virtually in the study opposite mine. And Peter tells me that I assisted him with his homework. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he insists it is. Now, why should I doubt it? The fact is that he did need assistance. The fact is that he came in one day, I hope I get these dates right, and I think he said that the favourite for the Oaks was Paddy Prendergast's Noblesse. And Peter's father, Ken, was running a horse, I think, called Poor Parley, and that was ridden by Scobie Breesley. And of course, I was absorbing names. I couldn't put them in context. I didn't know anything about it. I thought that's very, very interesting. He said, you must back Poor Parley each way. She's bound to get a place. She was 14-1 or something like that. And so a friend of mine who could use his mother's account placed the bet. And then I was introduced to the problem that he could only put the bet on at tote odds for the place. It wasn't an each-way bet. And so although Poor Parley was placed, she only paid a little over even money for the place. And that was, I think, only had 4 shillings each way. Mind you, it may have been the only 4 shillings I had in the world, so it was quite a bet. But anyway, that was all dealt with. And I thought that was interesting. The history of England and what people did in England was very interesting, and I was very taken by the book by Siegfried Sassoon, the memoirs of a fox hunting man. And he, at one stage, shared quarters in hunting territory, I think up towards Nottingham, I'm not sure. And the chap was called Dennis Milden, I think, from memory. I hope I got that right. Anyway, Milden said there was a horse running in the Cambridgeshire, which was, I think it was 25-1, and he had £10 each way on it at 25-1, which I suppose is quite a lot for a bet in or about 1900. And Julie scooted up, and I said, now that's very interesting. How do you prepare all that? And I thought that's very interesting. And I used to go down to a betting shop in the town and spend the afternoon in there. The housemaster was very nice about it because my jacket must have stunk of stale cigarette smoke in the way the betting shops really did smell then. They really were awful. Anyway, it didn't bother me. I was very happy down there, thinking or imagining I was thinking about things, and then I'd back a winner and back a loser and that sort of thing, and I thought this is very, very interesting. And you start to think in terms of statistics. And racing, to me, is all about statistics. You can't escape them at all. And forever I've been interested in statistics. I'm not a mathematician, but I have a facility with basic figures. And so it wasn't difficult for me to fit in with these statistics. Heathorns used to have a vast betting shop not far from the stock exchange. And the trade must have been huge. I mean, there must have been, do I exaggerate to say, there would have been 60, 75 people in there? Well, it was huge. And then they had a separate betting office in an adjacent block, and if it was acceptable to them, acceptable to you, and provided you lost, you were obviously acceptable to them. And I think I would have had bets of the order of £40. This would have been about 1967.
Were you studying at this point to make sure you were a winner?
No, I wish I could have made sure I was a winner, but I certainly wasn't. And I ran up an overdraft of £1,000, which was quite a lot then. And my father undertook to guarantee it. So when I went out in early 1969 to Zambia, I owed this £1,000. My father was extremely concerned that he was on the hook. Anyway, the fact is that he wanted the £1,000 cleared off. And it wasn't that easy to do overnight. Although I was outrageously overpaid in Central Africa, I can tell you that. And after some very vivid correspondence between myself and my father, I just put my head down and I just earned it off. I just paid it off. And that was that. Zambia is rather unusual, as countries go, in that betting debts were legally enforceable there. And as far as I'm aware, it was the only territory in the world where where betting debts were enforceable. And it was tremendous fun.
Were you still betting when you were over there?
Oh, yes.
Had you taken it more seriously at that point? I mean, were you not adverse to losing?
Well, if you're averse to losing, you shouldn't go betting. But one must accept that losing comes along, and if you're not prepared to accept that, then you're in the wrong territory. But anyway, I just went along, and there were a couple of betting shops in Lusaka. There was one up on the Copper Belt, where I eventually came to reside, and one further out to the west and so on. I thought it was fine. It was agreeable. I don't think there was any violence. That's what people wonder about. Non-payment of betting debts did not lead to people's legs being broken or anything like that. Whereas I think in the Far East there was a different experience. If you didn't settle properly in the Far East, you would have a visit from the triads. And I have no personal experience of this at all, but that apparently did go on. What goes on nowadays, I don't know. I've never been involved with an account in the Far East, at least not in Hong Kong. I have had an account in Taiwan, but that's another story. There wasn't violence in Zambia, that's what I would say. And it was very interesting, and I met all sorts of characters. There was a relation there, or so he told me, of the Earl of Derby. And he said, you, Simon Cawkwell, will either end up very rich or you're going to prison. And, which I think is rather a gloomy sort of thing to say to someone. But anyway, he's been wrong on both accounts.
And did you have more respect for a professional city trader or a professional gambler?
There's no difference between the two. I can't see how people think there's a difference. It's true that if you take a bet on a share, it may be a year, even 5 years, before you know whether you've won or lost on the bet. But it's nonetheless, it's a bet. And in fact, one of the few interesting things I've ever read in the Daily Mail, this was quite a few years ago now, there was, I think the editor was then Alex Brummer. Well, he still is, actually, the city editor. And I remember the remark he wrote, it was a very important one. A safe investment is one whose risks have not yet become apparent. Well, that actually is a very good point.